Namaste. Chris Temple here with a quick tutorial for you. 4 steps to coming into tripod headstand. Now, before we get started, I did want to mention that if you have any spinal issues, namely cervical spinal issues, this is not the pose for you. We'll look at other inversions together. Those of us who think that our spine is perfectly healthy, I still would recommend that you seek out the advice of a professional before embarking on such a perilous journey. So err on the side of caution. Tripod headstand can be broken up into 4 steps. I'd like to say easy steps. I don't know about that. It does take practice. Step 1, get into the box. So let's come on hands and knees to look at that one. Take your hands shoulder width apart and then bend your elbows to 90 degrees. Yeah, so I'm seeing my wrists are at a 90-degree bend, and then my elbows are at a 90-degree bend. As we all know, I think we all know, boxes have 6 sides. So in our box, we just looked at basically 3 sides. The ground is the bottom of the box, the forearm is the side of the box, and then the tricep, bicep, upper arm is the top of the box. Well, the other side of the box is the back of my neck. So as you start to see this shape, you see the bottom of the box being the floor, side of the box is both my forearm and the back of my neck, and then the tricep is the top of the box. But as I just said, the box has 6 sides. So I'll face you like this, setting up all of those things like I just said. I'll move through them a little more swiftly. Check out where my elbows are. You might not even be able to see them because I want to make sure that they're not chicken winging out to the side or collapsing in. My elbows stay directly in line with the shoulders. So there are your 6 sides of the box. Those 90-degree angles should not change, not much. They shift a little bit, of course, but they should not change for the entire duration of transitioning in, being in tripod headstand, and transitioning out. One thing I do want to say about the hand portion, I want to make sure that I'm not jamming into the wrists. I want to press into the fingerprints and engage the index knuckle pad. You can see that my fingers are arching because I'm clutching my fingerprints into the mat. Not super duper crazy, but they are firm and connected. The reason being, if I collapse into the heels of my palms, when my elbows do start to go astray or my shoulders start to feel like they're locking up, I can't move. There's too much tension in the pose. If I can bring the weight into the fingerprints and the knuckle mounds, I've got a little bit of freedom to make those micro adjustments as I need to. So step 1, get in the box, we're done. Step 2 is shifting the weight. The further I shift the weight towards the top of my mat, the easier it's going to be to lift my legs because my center of gravity changes. How do I shift the weight most effectively is simply to walk my feet as close to the wrists as I can. I'm gonna get back in the box. I'm gonna take my elbows over my wrists. I'm gonna curl the toes, lift my knees. Now already I'm introducing weight into the cervical spine. If this feels like it's too much, that's a good telltale sign to not go any further. But if I'm gonna eventually come up, I have to shift the weight. The way that I do that is to walk my feet as close to the wrists as possible. And then as you're looking at me, you'll see my feet start to kind of come off the ground already. And that is simple physics. Is there strength involved? Absolutely. But shifting the weight means that gravity, the center of gravity, starts to take over, so I don't need to work as hard. So shifting the weight, super important. We do that by walking the toes as close to the wrists as possible. Third tip, strengthening the thighs. The thighs are a combination of your quadriceps and your hip flexors. I feel like before I come up, I'm hugging my legs towards the upper body. This again is going to facilitate drawing the center of gravity in. So walking the toes as close to my wrists takes the center of gravity towards the top of my mat. Hugging my thighs towards my upper body is going to bring my center of gravity in so that my legs can come up again more effortlessly. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to get back into my box. Curling the toes, lifting the knees, I walk my feet as close to my wrists as possible, and then I feel my thighs firm, and then I'm going to take my feet just a little bit off the ground. They're not going to come up super high. Great. Center of gravity is in. I'm feeling in control. I'm pressing into my fingerprints and knuckle mounts so there's no rigidity in the shoulders and the elbows can stay right over the wrists. I'm coming back down. I'm going to come on to my shins. I'll give my neck a little roll. We always want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves in between. Okay, fourth tip to coming into this pose is pushing into the crown of my head at the front. So imagine for a moment that I'm in tripod headstand and the mat is above my head. So you're seeing me upside down. I'm gonna grossly exaggerate the action that you're going to do, but this is the action. I'm gonna look up with my entire head, not just the eyes, but looking up with my entire head. This puts pressure in the front of the top, the crown of my head, so that I can come up more efficiently. In this pose, obviously, one of the risks that we run is collapsing into the spine. Usually that's the way the spine is going to collapse when we if we fall out of this pose. By engaging the muscles on the back of the neck and shoulders, we stay strong back here, so we're less likely to run the risk of toppling down. And because you're using these muscles efficiently, the legs and the core can do its job without having to worry about what's going on down below. We're kind of coming back to that first tip, was making sure our foundation is exactly the way it needs to be. So I'm gonna look up and just gently push into the front of the crown of my head. I'm getting back into the box. Now I'm gonna tuck the toes, lift the knees, walk my feet closer to the wrist. I'm not gonna come up this time, because I just want to show you what this looks like. You may not even be able to see it happen much, but I'm going to push into the crown of my head at the front, and then I'm going to relax that, and then I'm going to push into the crown of my head at the front, and then I'm going to relax that, lowering back down onto my shins. So there it is. Especially when I'm transitioning, coming up and coming back down, that's when I push into that sweet spot. Actually, when I'm all the way up at the top, I can stop doing that. I just want to rest on the center of the crown of my head. Let's put all that together. You can watch me do it, and then you can practice on your own. Hands shoulder width apart. I'm getting back into the box, finding all those beautiful 90-degree angles, making sure my elbows stay over my wrists. I'm pressing into the prints of my fingers. I'm going to curl the toes, lift the knees. Walk my feet as close to the wrists as possible, and feel belly and thighs firming in. From there, I'm going to push into the front of the crown of my head to slowly float my legs all the way up. Then with control, I stay here, and I'm making a lot of micro adjustments, but they're not going to freak me out because I'm breathing a smooth breath. Now, when I'm ready to come back down, again, I'm going to look up into the mat. I'm going to firm the thighs to shift my hips towards the top of my mat. And this is going to allow my legs to come down nice and slowly because my center of gravity is right where it needs to be. And then I can just lower onto my shins and come all the way up. Little neck maintenance. Roll it out. Beautiful. So there you are, your 4 steps. Step 1, get into the box. Make sure all 6 sides of your box are at 90-degree angles. Step 2, shift the weight. You walk your feet as close to the wrists as you can, and then the center of gravity has shifted, so the legs will be lighter. Step 3, firm the thighs in towards the torso. This brings your center of gravity in towards itself to, again, more efficiently come up into the pose. Lastly, as we enter into the pose, we push into the front of the crown of the head, making sure that the muscles on the back of the neck are already engaged. We come all the way up, we can relax directly onto the crown of the head, and then coming back down, we push back into that front of the crown of the head to effortlessly, light as a feather, land back down on Mother Earth. So, give it a couple times, take your time. I definitely recommend you should be able to say those 4 steps to yourself before you come upside down. One of the teachers that taught me said that we're 50% stupider when we come upside down. So if you can't say those steps readily when you're just sitting upright, we can't possibly expect that you're going to remember what they are when you're upside down. So be able to verbally say to yourself what the 4 steps are, and then as you move in and out of the pose, be saying them to yourself. There you go. If you have any questions, please do reach out, and I look forward to seeing you on the mat. Namaste.